Everyone, and welcome to Speaking Truth to Power once again, seen on Saturday mornings from 10 to 9. I'm Denise Kirchoff,
I'm Dr. Nakpangi Thomas.
and our guest today is Nicole Smalls, who is actually running for City Council at large seat. Am I right?
Yes, I am.
And
Yes,
she
I am.
is vice chair of the
Detroit
Detroit
Charter
Detroit
Commission.
Charter
Yes.
Commission.
Your face has been like everywhere on the news.
Hasn't
Yes, it has. Yes,
But it
has.
doesn't look good. But you know,
Her face doesn't look
Well,
good.
no, her face looks
I
good.
just thought I'd
Your
throw that
face
at her.
looks good.
I know.
But
I'm just teasing.
The
okay.
comments and the commentary on some of these news articles that I've seen about the Detroit Charter Commission and the commotion that they've had place. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Denise, while you were doing our opening. So I'm going to let you finish
no,
that
well,
before we get in with Nicole.
Well, no. Do you actually want to do our call signs right quick?
Oh, you're watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV.
That might be a good
The
idea.
coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV. And we're back on In Session.
Right now, one of the
Oh, I
things-
said In Session. That's the other show. This is Speaking Truth to Power.
Okay, I was like, are we in court in a couple? We weren't aware. We'd addressed a little differently.
I know. I'm going to put you guys in session and see what's on your mind.
Now, one of the first things I want to talk to you about is we know you're running for city council at large.
Yes.
Now, and you're on the charter commission. Now, one of the things, if correct me if I'm wrong, that you said that you didn't think the financial, what they were asking for financially was sustainable. Now, can you explain that to people? Because a lot of people are curious about what does this new charter look like? Why is there like vote this and vote that? They're just, like you said, there just seems to be a lot of, I mean, I'm just hearing two totally opposite things. And when I hear it, I'm like, is that really there? I'm like, that's not there. And I'm like, so why are they saying that? So why don't you explain that to us?
Yeah, so let's just be honest. Historically, anytime that we have had to fight for democracy and fight for the will of the people, it has never been a pretty look. So if we
Right.
thought that we were going to go into this and it was going to be packaged all nice and pretty with a bow, then shame on you. You're a little naive to how this works. With that said, it's absolutely, to your point, frustrating to see so much opposition with things that are not in this charter. They're just not in this charter. You know, sometimes, we all three of us can read something or see something and have a different interpretation. In this
Absolutely.
instance, it's simply not there. No one will get free water. It does not say that. It's very clear and explicit, and it says that we will have a tiered system based on income for affordable water so that everyone can afford water and so that we can stop having the poor and the middle working class to supplement the cost of water for these rich millionaires and billionaires who have these arenas downtown. I think that that's more than fair. When we talk about real affordable housing, it's not that we're trying to give everyone free housing. No one will get free housing. It simply says that, we've gone from what was called low income to affordable housing, and the affordable housing isn't affordable for a huge portion of Detroiters who need that,
Excuse me.
right? It's based on the income of Detroit, Livonia, and Macomb, which requires you, in order to be eligible, to make almost $55,000 a year, but the average Detroiter makes around $27,000 or less a year. So what do we do with that population of people? We need to ensure that there is real adequate affordable housing for them. It does not, it will not drive developers away. See, one thing that people don't understand is that a lot of what you're hearing about opposition to Proposal P are just scare tactics. Let's talk about Proposal P being a problem for pensioners. Like, it's in order to stop yourself from being so angry, you have to just laugh at it because the pensioners, the retirees, helped us to write the section in the charter. These are people who have had their pensions cut by like $1,000, some of them. Do you think that they would have us implement anything in this charter that would do further harm and compromise their interests? Absolutely not. And then you have the question around, well, why are they saying these things? You know why? Because they don't want you to have a better quality of life. There is a clear agenda and strategy to displace the huge population of Detroiters who have been here for years to help hold this city down. and they want to remove us, and they want to put in new people. And I'm all for inclusion, but not at the expense of excluding our people who have been here. What we see happening is not business. What it is a strategy to have urban removal and to displace our people. They don't want to increase transparency in government. Think about it. Last year, we had $92 million in CARES Act fund to come here. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, CARES Act stands for COVID Act Relief Economic Stimulus. Mm-hmm. Those last two words, economic stimulus, really means that people were supposed to have funding given to them to help supplement the financial crisis that they were in, the gaps. But guess what happened? Mm-hmm. No one knows where the money went. There's no accountability. They only gave out an email address. And you know we have a digital divide here, yes. Right? So when you talk about there is not a real robust effort for checks and balances, those things are really baked into the agreement. We did not anywhere in the charter say that we were going to hire 40-something new people. And I tell people that because I was on an interview with one of the people who've been leading this effort to oppose the charter. And I said, well, where did we say that? Where did we say that we were going to we were going to elect 42 new people? Literally, Detroiters will only elect 6 new people. Mm-hmm. That's it. These other commissions that we've created, like a commission for African Americans and reparations, which has now been hijacked, in my opinion, and watered down, but it gets all the media attention. Well, that's actually in the charter, right? But in order to kind of distract people, and they'll say, oh, well, here's reparations here. Well, it's a watered down version, to be honest with you. And then we have a commission for the broadband to bridge the digital divide. No one will get free Wi-Fi. The problem is that for years we've been promised this.
I'm wondering if you're aware of this. There was Debbie Dingle, and actually in D.C. there was a new bill signed. Mm-hmm. I want to say this week that has to do with the digital divide, not the digital divide, which would actually provide money to communities, and it's not part of the CARES Act.
No.
And I think that, and it has something to do with sort of the infrastructure, but that was just something that's just been passed, and there's no reason for that not to move forward in the Senate because it's needed. So I'm sort of curious. Now they have all this money for the CARES Act and that infrastructure, and now we have this new federal legislation, which is also going to bring money to the table. So now I'm just curious, between your position on the Charter Commission and you wanting to run for City Council, are you looking for that position so you can basically say, look, this is what needs to be happening. I'm on this commission here. I know what we said, and now I'm here, and I can start giving you those numbers, giving you that information on what we should be doing. Why the crossover?
So, to be honest with you, so my term ends August the 3rd. I just simply want to continue my work as a public servant for Detroiters. I have worked for 3 years along with Detroiters who actually helped us to write the charter. This just wasn't an effort by 9 commissioners, but to make sure that we have safeguards that are in our city's constitution. So that's the policy effort, right? Crafting policy. And so then as a city council person, if this passes, it would be my responsibility to help implement and enforce these revisions. So that's the next level of it. When it comes to those federal dollars that you're talking about, let's just be honest. We have been receiving a ton of federal dollars in this city. Somehow, some way, City Council fails to ensure accountability around how those dollars are used. Okay. Whether it's the 300 and something million that was actually allocated to help people stay in their homes, that went towards demolition, and we have a federal investigation under that. Whether it's the CARES Act money, of where no one can tell you line item who received that $92 million, or now the American Rescue Plan dollars. I mean, we received $860 million of that money, and some of that could have been used to actually do some of the things that we're talking about in the charter. But here's the thing. We don't have a voice on City Council to ensure that these dollars that have been allocated and earmarked to service the Detroiters in the neighborhoods, that it actually goes towards that purpose. I mean, now they went from $860 million to $826 million. Just process that. By the time the money got to the table, you have a council and a mayor telling you that there's only $826 million, and just, they're changing the mindset of people, and people are focusing, oh, we only have 826 million when it's
Where'd
in
the
writing.
rest of it go?
That's my point, and no one talks about it. That's a huge lack of accountability, and then to take some of that money and put 50 million into a Joe Louis Greenway when you are not going to service the neighborhoods. That's just an extension of the Riverwalk. To put 20 million into streetscapes, 26 million into bike lanes. We have neighborhoods with sidewalks that are standing straight up like a mountaintop.
Exactly.
We have trees overgrowing. You know, we have lighting issues. All we asked you to do was to change the light bulb. My God, we didn't ask you to take the whole pole out and give us less adequate lighting.
Right.
You know, so you need someone there that's actually going to say, okay, well,
or
you know,
how about tearing down structurally sound homes and making them green spaces? Like, we don't need livable homes for our citizens. We already are not having proper housing, but we're going to tear down something that's already existing and just put what? Grass there?
And then it gets better. And not cut the grass.
And not
cut the
that
grass.
part.
Not cut the grass.
Tell me about it.
You don't want the kids to walk past, because the little kids, I mean, if somebody reaches in and takes them, you look around like, where'd they go? I mean, they could be all the way in the back. It's like, where'd they go? Because the grass is as tall as they are.
They are so good at what they do. Remember, this whole new administration was about a resurgence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't a resurgence?
Did you say insurgent?
No, resurgence. Resurgence. It's supposed to be a resurgence of the city. So with that said, isn't that about rebuilding, bringing life back to something? Well, all we hear about is tearing everything down. That's all you hear about is demolition.
That's not true. They're rebuilding downtown.
That's true.
Downtown is beautiful. I live downtown.
Yeah,
so
where's the resurgence into the neighborhoods and into the Detroiters, though? You know, we need to bring economic opportunities to them. We need to bring jobs to them. We need to make sure that resources are actually getting to the neighborhoods.
And what about schools? We have a lot of, I recall when I graduated from high school, we had, I don't even know how many schools we had, but there were literally over 100, maybe 200 schools here in Detroit. How many schools do we currently have in Detroit?
I don't know. I wouldn't know that.
I know there's only maybe 5 high schools now.
It's less than, I think it is less than 10. Detroit Public School Community District.
Detroit Public Schools.
Because you do have these charter schools, which follow a totally different charter and a different requirement. And I'm a little baffled about that. I'm like, okay, eventually won't all these kids, when they go to college or move on, won't they all have to know the same thing? So why are charter schools and public schools on the same page?
No, listen, we're coming out of, hopefully, a pandemic, right? We have this whole new mutated whatever. But we're trying to come out of a pandemic. If we didn't learn anything else, it's about how much of a disadvantage our children are when it comes to learning than other schools. And think about it. We don't have the leadership. So DPSCD received almost $1 billion, right? Then the city received almost $1 billion because it's the 860 plus another 180 million they don't want to tell you about. The first thing both of them should have done was come together and bridge this digital divide. Our children cannot afford to continue to suffer and to be at such a disadvantage in other schools, right? So when you talk about the schools, let's talk about the resources that we invest into our children's future. Let's talk about the resources that we need to invest into our seniors. Listen, for those who were flooded, I went over to the east side to a senior development. Had only been built since 2011. Think about that. That's fairly new.
Right.
Yeah? Do you know this is the 3rd time that they flooded? So myself and Commissioner Winder, we went and helped them fill out the DWSD forms to make sure that they received them. So you have to get online for that. Now you have to get online for FEMA. Then if you want to go to Great Lakes Water Authority and put a claim in there, we have to do something to help our people, be able to access the resources that are due to them. So, and I think it does start with our children's education. I mean, I know a lot of them don't read a hardcover book like I still do. They want everything online, but let's make sure that we invest into them so they can have more of an advantage to have a brighter future. But it seems that everybody talks the talk and they don't walk the walk, even though I know it's a difference with city council.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. And you are back with Speaking Truth to Power with Denise Kirchoff and Nakpangi Thomas, Dr. Nakpangi Thomas. I forget about that sometimes. And our guest, Nicole Smalls. And our phone lines are open. So if you would like to join the conversation, please call us at 313-355-60 and 18. And guess what, everyone? Jazz is back in Detroit. The WJZZ Detroit Jazz Legacy I'm this combobulated over here.
It's catchy.
WJZZ Detroit Legacy Jazz Series started July 29th every Thursday at St. Regis Hotel. Ticket information you can get at eventbrite.com, WJZZradio@gmail.com, sponsored by WJZZ Radio and Cool TV. Why Art? Art Summit panel discussion and mixer at Hannah Center in Midtown Detroit, sponsored by Hannah Center and WJZZ Cool TV. And we are back on In Session, and we have our other guest joining us now, Mr. Denzel McCampbell, and he is also on the Detroit Charter Commission, and he is running for Detroit City Clerk. Denzel, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You came in right on time.
Oh, perfect.
That's a smooth transition.
Thank you.
So, we were having a little conversation with Nicole, but now that both of you are here, let us formally have you introduce yourselves and tell us your qualifications of the positions that you're running for.
And give everybody your information about your campaign so they know where to go, look, donate, like.
Yeah. Then we'll start a whole new conversation.
All right. Again, my name is Nicole Small, candidate for Detroit City Council at large. And let me just start remembering, everyone doesn't know what that means. That means I'm running citywide. So that means that any registered voter in the city of Detroit, or if you want to go register on election day, you can vote for me for city council at large. With that said, I am a native Detroiter, born and raised on the west side of Detroit. I love my city. I think Detroiters are salt of the earth people. We are resilient, but we have to do a better job of sharing information and, actually knowing our worth, right? So I'm running right now to put Detroiters first. I want to make sure that we have access to the resources, the economics, and the opportunities that are coming into this city. If we don't ensure that we have leadership to do that, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, what will happen is that what you have seen for the past 8 years will pale in comparison to what's to come. Mm-hmm. You think that we have seen displacement before, people kicked out of their businesses illegally, homes stolen from them, from being overtaxed. You will see it at a much more rampant rate. And so I want to be there to make sure that we mitigate some of that happening. I can't solve all the ills of Detroit, but I am here to make sure that I will listen to you. I will be your voice. I will prioritize your needs. I guarantee you that the people's interest will supersede the interest of corporations. We want to bring businesses here, but we do not want to give them just a free-for-all and a blank slate for them to write their own check.
Nicole, what's the role of City Council?
Checks and balances to legislate the laws, the ordinances that we have into place to make sure that you represent the interest of the people. It is your job to make sure that whatever is coming from the executive branch, dollars that are coming into this city, that you increase transparency, number one, because that is really important, but you hold not the executive branch accountable. So that includes the mayor, that includes the appointees, that includes the people who are working, performing city services in these city departments. But it also includes like the federal dollars that we received and the corporations and the other organizations that we are partnering with. It's not a position where, and this is what I often hear, well, how are you going to work for the mayor? No. How is the mayor going to work with city council?
Hello.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And
I don't
that's
think
what we
people
need.
understand that the legislative branch actually Like if the mayor said, okay, we wrote this down and this is what we're going to do. You're the legislative branch. You get to go, no. We're going to cross that out. We're going to cross that out. And we're going to rewrite this. And it's up to us to decide that. So I think people need to understand there's the executive branch, which is the mayor and his appointees, and the legislative branch, which actually does the work and has to approve the work that he sends. He doesn't just get to go, you know what? I'm going to put $2 million downtown Detroit. You go, okay, give it to us in writing. And then you guys go over it. You go to the people and go, what do you think of it?
That like, you actually read it now.
Right.
You have to read it.
You should read it. You should read it.
And that's what people need to understand when they're electing city council. Yeah. That your city council can change anything the mayor's doing because they are the legislative branch. So that's really interesting.
Not just rubber stamping everything that you're being told. And that's our biggest issue. And one of the reasons why I'm running is to make sure that you have someone who takes a deep dive beyond just the surface of what's being said when it's presented to council, but to ensure that they actually read these documents and you go through it and you do just that. And you negotiate. You negotiate terms that are beneficial for Detroiters. No one should ever support anything at that table proposed by anyone where you cannot tell Detroiters explicitly how it's going to benefit them. I don't mean one person, but you should be able to say, listen, Detroit, this is how the selling of the Broadhead Armory is going to benefit you. You know, not selling a $6 million property for $300,000 to the parade company. How does that benefit Detroiters? Not whatsoever. So my name is Nicole Small. You can reach out to me either on Facebook at Nicole Small for City Council at large, or I have a website and it's electnicolesmall.com. electnicolesmall.com.
And if they wanted to donate to your campaign,
they can go right on electnicolesmall.com and click the donate link.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's all.
Well, thank you again for having me on. My name is Denzel McCampbell, running for Detroit City Clerk. And before I get into why I'm running, who I am, just to set the groundwork of what the city clerk does, folks may recognize the city clerk around administering elections, but what folks also may not realize is that the city clerk is the record keeper of the city, the clerk of the council, and really the person who's responsible for ensuring that city documents are kept, that they're accessible, and that folks have that transparency in government. So I'm running to increase the activity around all of those issues. But just a little bit about myself. I was born and raised on the east side. I currently live on the west side near Rouge Park with my dog, Minnie.
Minnie. Everybody know Minnie.
Right, exactly. And, I've been involved in voting rights and election protection for the last decade. And what I mean by that is that I would actually go around the state to various clerks who would have problems with long lines, who would have problems with telling people they need ID when they didn't have to.
Oh, long lines.
Long lines,
Okay.
yeah.
Long
Long voting lines, or telling people that they need an ID when in Michigan you actually don't need an ID. So I would be the person going around and say, hey, you need to change your polling location, the way it's set up, so people can go through easily. You need to train your poll workers to make sure that they know that people actually don't need an ID. Like, let's fix these problems. So I did that work for the last decade. I've also been, you see the nonpartisan 866R vote. I'm the person on the other end that will send out lawyers or go out myself to say, you need to fix this problem on election day. The polling locations are closed. Let's make signs so people know where they need to go. I've done that work, so I know election law. And I currently serve as an elected Detroit Charter Revision Commissioner with Vice Chair Small, and I am Congresswoman Tlaib's Communications Director. And what I want to put forth on why I'm running for Detroit City Clerk is a couple of reasons. One, we have to expand access to the ballot box. And what I mean by that, we need to ensure that people are getting accurate, timely, and repetitive information about elections. Vice Chair Small and I have been to senior homes, and they have said, I didn't even know there was an election coming up. And these are folks that vote in every election. So it wasn't that they just may miss something. They said, I didn't know until I saw a candidate's yard sign. And that's because the information is not getting out from the city clerk's office, and that's the role of the city clerk. When I talk about transparency, did you know you can't even find out how your city council person voted on agenda items, if it's contracts, if it's the lawsuit against the protester, if it's the ARP funds. You can't figure out how your person voted unless you call down to the clerk's office and hope that they answer the phone to tell you to get you that information, right?
That's one of the biggest problems, getting people on the phone.
And I'll touch on that. And when I watch LA, their city council hearing in real time on the screen, you can see how each person is voting on each agenda item. So what I'm running for is to bring technology forth so we can get that information very quickly to increase accountability. And lastly, as you're talking about, you know, the customer service around the city clerk's office, we have to ensure that civic engagement and education is the center of the city clerk's office. And on day one, what I want to do is to bring employees together, stakeholders together, civic engagement groups, block clubs, neighborhood associations, residents together to say, here are all the services that we're offering, that we're supposed to offer in the city clerk's office. How can we do it better? For employees, what do you need to do your job better? And for residents, what do we have to do to ensure that you feel listened to and that you feel that the city clerk is working on your behalf?
That sounds like a strengths and needs assessment to me.
Absolutely. And we need to be doing that all the time with every aspect and bringing in the best practices, getting the resources from city council and the mayor to do that, and making sure that folks feel that they're being listened to. Because the city clerk's office is the center point of all this information, of elections, of voting rights. And we have to make sure that we're getting that information out. And the final thing I'll talk on, is when I talk about civic education. You know, across the country, we saw a record turnout in 2020.
We did, yes.
But we didn't see record turnout in the city of Detroit. And it's not because just this 144 square miles didn't get all the information didn't know that there was an election coming up, but it's because folks didn't know how to vote safely in the midst of a pandemic. They didn't know where to vote, and they didn't know what actually all was going on. And what I want to do is to create a civic education corps, which will have folks in the neighborhoods going door to door, holding community forums, on a foundation of...
How about using precinct delegates for that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You have a whole group of people that
how about
are elected to do things of that nature.
Well, what I've also noticed that even where I live, a lot of city clerks have stopped sending out mailers. I can remember being a kid, and my mom got, when there was literally 6 months before an election, there was prop this, prop that, millage this, millage that. And most people don't even get that information, even though money is received. And they say, okay, we're just going to keep the mailing money here and we're going to put it out online. And we know most of our seniors who vote are not that tech savvy.
Right.
And there's so much.
They barely can use their cell phones, let alone a computer.
Right. There is no law.
And that on Facebook, though.
Right. But people don't understand.
That's fun. They can learn that real quick.
There is no law that says your clerk's office must send you electronic information. I mean, will not send you paper information. And people don't understand that you can call up your clerk's office and say, no, I want it mailed to my whole neighborhood. They cannot refuse you. And a lot of people, like I heard a lot of seniors that have family that live here in Detroit, and my great aunts were, well, I'm not sure about the voting machines. I'm like, you do know when the voting machines are tested, there are public hours. You can legally go register and watch the voting machines be tested. She's like, nobody ever told me that. I'm like, really?
That's the biggest response. So why doesn't anyone
and people
tell us
don't
that?
understand it. So when people talk about, well, how do I know the election is safe? Why don't you actually go watch the testing yourself?
Well, and
it's available, it's open, and it's public. But the clerk's office doesn't tell you that.
And that's the key. And that's exactly. And that's why I tell folks, and folks will ask me, how will you ensure there's integrity in the vote count? I said, well, first, I'm going to educate folks on the actual processes. So they know what goes down, that they know about the testing, that they know that they can view this in public, so that everybody knows what's going on. And if they see anything, they can hold folks accountable. Because that's the key.
Say something.
Exactly. That's the first step. Because in 2020, what did we see? We had the folks banging on the windows coming down and said, well, I saw ballots come in after 8 p.m. Well, the drop boxes were open until 8 p.m. So you're going to see ballots come in after 8 p.m. But we have to make sure folks know that and know the processes, and so it's transparent and that they can hold folks accountable if anything is going on wrong. The other thing I'll talk about as we're talking about information, right? We've heard constantly from folks that they didn't get their ballot. They didn't get their absentee application. They said, I get it every time. I didn't get it this year. So we've driven around. I know Nicole has. I have driven around to say, here's the application. take it up to the satellite office. And I'll say that as a point of information on the show, if you have a ballot right now, do not mail it in. Drop it off at one of the drop boxes that our current clerk has reduced the numbers of, but we can make sure you get the information. I'll give you my contact information at the end, or drop it off at a satellite location. Do not mail it back because we're concerned that it won't get there on time. And this is the information that we have to get out, and that's why I'm running for Detroit City Clerk, to increase that information, increase our access to the ballot, and make sure folks actually know what's going on when it comes to voting rights and election administration.
All right, you are watching Speaking Truth to Power live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. And jazz is back in Detroit. WJZZ Detroit Legacy Jazz Series starting July 29th every Thursday at St. Regis Hotel on, what's that, on
West Grand Boulevard at near Woodward.
Yep. So you can get tickets at Eventbrite as well as WJZZ Radio at gmail.com. And this event is sponsored by WJZZ Radio and WJZZ Cool TV. Why art? Art Summit panel discussions and mixer at Hannah Center in Midtown Detroit. Sponsored by Hannah Center and WJZZ Cool TV and WJZZ Radio. And we are back on Speaking Truth to Power with Denise Kirchoff and Dr. Nakpangi Thomas with our guests Nicole Small and Denzel McCampbell.
And back to what you were saying.
Absolutely. And I just want to, before we get into more questions, I just want to give folks a way to contact me. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can just look up Denzel McCampbell for Detroit City Clerk. We also have a website, www.denzel4detroit, and FOR4 spelled out, denzel4detroit.com. You will be able to find all the contact information there, donation links. And if you go on our social media, we're going to start posting out all of this voting rights information and where you can vote and where you can drop your ballots off to. But, the last thing I'll say about this race, I'm running because we should and must do more when it comes to civic engagement in the city of Detroit. All of the issues we care about, whether it's equitable development, water affordability, we have to make sure that people have their information. Vice Chair Small and I are on the Charter Commission, and we continue to see millions of dollars poured into a Vote No campaign. And folks continue on the doors. They say, well, I want to have factual information about Prop P. And that's something that the city clerk could be doing.
Well, let me ask you all this, because with you all being on the charter, you all developed this question for Proposal P. How did that question come about? I know in the charter, which has been written before you all were elected to these positions, you all were instructed from the previous charter to ask a question. Is that correct? So how did this question get on the ballot?
This is
or proposal. How did this question?
That's within the clerk's office about ballot questions. That process and everything. Go ahead, Denzel.
First it comes from, there's a standard question in the Home Rule City Act for charter commissions and revisions of a charter. So it's the standard question, I believe, is show up as, shall this revised charter be adopted? And it would just say, the 2018 Charter Commission came up with this revised charter, and shall this charter be adopted? And that's kind of the boilerplate language there. We did look into a different question, but I'll tell you, this process has been so politicized by the folks who really, it should have been a very ministerial type of process, and it's been politicized at every step that we've tried to go forth and actually be transparent and actually make sure it's plain language for voters. We've gotten pushback. Even just putting it on the ballot, we've gotten pushback. Even saying that, okay, let's go ahead and address any concerns there. We got pushback there where the governor didn't even want to review it. So
the governor?
Yes. So it's those things. This process has been very disappointing because residents have put in so much time and effort into this revised charter. That's the thing
For
that
3 years.
For
You guys
3
have been
years.
working
Yes.
on it
Now,
for
With
3
the
years.
people of Detroit,
Yes.
I want you to understand that we received more than 538 proposals from Detroiters. See, that's the part that people don't really connect with. It wasn't a matter of having a few meetings and we just said, well, this is what we think is great. In a city where they say we have an illiteracy rate beyond 50%, we had that type of engagement from Detroiters.
Right.
No other governmental entity in the city of Detroit administration has received that type of engagement where that many Detroiters write down what they want to propose. And that is something that people must understand.
Absolutely.
We didn't pull this stuff out of the air.
Now, I'm just a bit curious. Is it not up to the city clerk to say, okay, this is our old charter. This is what it looks like. And as required by law, every so often, we have to revise our charter according to our city's wishes. And this is what our new charter looks like. Now, and my understanding is that's supposed to be sent out. I'm trying to remember what I read. People don't take this as gospel. But my understanding is it has to be sent out like 4 times. Before the actual election. How many people have actually received that? Has that been done by the city clerk's office? Because it's supposed to, because you have to give people a chance to look at it. It's up to the clerk's office, because this is the language that will appear on the ballot.
I can tell you, in the last 3 years, I can count 5 pieces of mailing that I received from our city clerk in the past 3 years. 5 pieces of literature.
And I'll tell you, there is an election newsletter that goes out. Well, we've seen it before, right?
It's allegedly
Well,
goes
there,
out,
but what
Let's
I'll
say
tell you,
that.
I want to be very transparent
I'm a
here
resident.
because
I'm a resident.
No,
so
I think
can
he means
speak
like
differently.
think he means before, like historically we have
Yes,
seen it, not
we-
necessarily now.
No, I agree.
Right.
No, I agree with you, and I'm gonna get to that. Like I sat on a forum with our current city clerk, and I was talking about how I want to increase civic education. She told the panel, I said, we need to go door to door, meet folks where they are. She told the panel, it's not feasible to meet every resident at the door. And I said, well, you have 4 years to do that. But she says
More
instead,
than 4,
yeah.
actually. She's been there. Janice Winfrey has been in that position for an extremely
A long time.
Hasn't done a dang on thing.
But she says
lately.
Instead of that, she sends out the newsletter. And another candidate said, well, you haven't sent it out yet. She said, well, there's a paper shortage. We do that as a courtesy.
It's a courtesy to inform people of who's running for
I
us.
thought it was
Back
her
up.
job.
I thought
that was her job. Wasn't
I
that
just-
what she was elected for?
I'm just like, didn't she get a check for that?
I'm just
It's
like,
like somebody goes, okay, I'm paying you to send that out.
You have a budget.
Oh,
You
okay.
have a
Yeah.
But see,
I mean, it does get paid, but I'm just
you're
saying
getting
there's a
paid,
budget.
and you have,
So can we just say this really quickly? I don't think that Detroiters really think about how. So when you're elected to do a job or appointed, then you allocate funding for your budget, right? You put in a budget proposal.
Yes.
I guarantee you within those line items of that budget proposal, there's a line item to do just that.
Or that.
No one ever thinks about that, is
Right.
that when they propose their budget to get this money, I guarantee you it was to do just that actual action, but then it doesn't happen. Now, how does that work?
And that's how, and
Well, it hasn't been working.
No accountability
No
from whom
account-
as well? No
the city
accountability from city council either. Go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
I would just say, and that's why we need folks like Nicole on City Council to
Right.
actually, to go back and do that. I'll tell you, in the Charter Commission, we put in language to say that the city clerk's office shall be proportionally funded to make sure that the city clerk's office does get the funding to do those things, to send out multiple mailers, to do multiple communication points, whether it's radio, TV, online, and in print. And we got back from the city clerk's office to strike that language. Right? So this is what we're talking about. Is like, I'm running for Detroit City Clerk because I know it is central and it's a responsibility and it is needed that we get information out to folks, that we educate folks about what's going on. And what we've seen currently and what we've seen in the years past is not that effort to meet folks where they are. It really seems that the Department of Elections and the City Clerk's office operates in a silo and is not really there for the people. And we have to change that.
So no accountability or transparency.
But do you know why that is? In my opinion, and I don't know.
Because they've been able to get away with it?
Well, that part too, but also there's this idea. So you have the mayor, right? Then, just imagine looking at an organizational chart. So you have the mayor, Then people typically look at the city clerk being independent. Then you have the council as a body. And unfortunately, civics has been taken out of our schools for the most part. And they don't understand that that legislative body is still responsible for checks and balances at the executive branch and for the clerk as well.
Yes.
And we're not, that messaging, we have to figure out a way how to get this messaging to the masses. I guarantee you, just like with Proposal P, now let me say this. I've been to more than 27 senior homes, okay? When we finally got it on the ballot, right, and we're still waiting for the Supreme Court, there is not a senior home that I have been to, there is not a community organization that I have been to that has said that if they already voted no, that they were not pissed off because they didn't know the facts.
Absolutely.
Some of them even went to spoil their ballot.
So what does Proposal P, what really is that about?
Prosperity for the people. It's about having in writing safeguards that protect the interests of the people in their constitution. People understand the importance of a constitution. What we need to make sure that we understand is that we need to change the mindset so people stop listening to these promises that don't come into fruition. If you are banking on these large corporations to do the right thing because someone told you it was and it's not in writing, good luck. These safeguards are in writing to protect the people.
Right, and we have to understand that corporations are corporations.
They're there to
make
do business. Yes.
And to make money. They're corporations. They're not there to really help the people necessarily, because we do have some companies that put in their budget to do community involvement.
They have to get these tax breaks.
Exactly.
Good corporate citizens.
They write it, but they don't actually do it, as you were stating. I wanted to ask you all. Well, actually, Denise asked me, and it's related, but it's off topic. In Texas, they're working on SB 1 and HR 3, which are bills to suppress the voting.
Yeah, it's voter suppression. It is.
If they succeed with that, how does that look, or will it impact Michigan?
Oh, absolutely. I think, but there's a blueprint across the country. There's a blueprint.
Oh, yeah, we saw the video.
Yeah.
We saw the video. The Republican Party has a video on basically how to create voter suppression. But one of my things is...
But wait, how will it affect the
So,
Michigan?
I'll tell you, you saw the Texas Democrats go to D.C. to implore the Senate to pass the For the People Act so they can prevent this, pass the voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to push back against this. We have a 39 bill package in the state of Michigan and Lansing that's similar to what we've seen in Texas, right? I know in Texas, in Harris County, which is where Houston is, they've done the 24-hour voting. They've done the drive-through voting, making things more accessible, still secure, because they're still ran by the clerk's office, but just more accessible. And we've seen similar efforts here in Michigan, right? Of saying, oh, well, we want you to send a copy of your driver's license with your absentee ballot. Who has access to a copy machine? What senior has access to it? So they dropped that effort, but what I'm saying is that's what we're seeing in Michigan, and it's just going to be more emboldened. But here's what I want to say also about that. When we're talking about voter suppression, we see these bills, and we see what, hopefully Governor Whitmer will veto what comes to her. But what I said hopefully. But what I tell you is that what they'll do is go around her, right? They'll try to do a citizen initiative. They'll come to Detroit, and in Michigan, it's still lawful to lie to people about what's on the petition.
I know.
So they'll come to say, oh, this is to raise your minimum wage, and it's really to take away voting rights. And we need a city clerk who will build a coalition and say, let's push back against that effort. We also need a city clerk who won't take up ballot box, drop boxes, when Republicans want to put more rules on drop boxes, and so it'd be harder to put them back down. That's the thing that's missing out of this conversation about drop boxes, right?
Right.
The ones that were already down were grandfathered in to, now Republicans want to have, you must have it staffed, you must have security cameras all over, you must have these things to really prevent it from happening, right? So if we take them up, we won't be able to put them back down in a way that's going to cost more, and people won't have that access. So not only do we have to think about these laws that we see in these state capitals, but we have to hold our local election administrators accountable to not aid in the suppression of the vote. And that's key.
Well, we have.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, subscribe. If you would like to join the conversation, our phone line is open. You can call us at 313-355-6018. Our guests are welcome to answer any questions. And Detroit, guess what? Jazz is back.
Yay.
WJZZ Detroit Legacy Jazz Series starting July 29th every Thursday at St. Regis Hotel. Get your tickets at Eventbrite or WJZZradio@gmail.com. And this event is sponsored by WJZZ Radio and WJZZ Cool TV. And then we have another little sponsorship, guys. Guess what? Why art? Art Summit panel discussion and mixer at Hannah Center in Midtown Detroit, sponsored by Hannah Center and Detroit WJZZ Cool TV and WJZZ Radio. And welcome back to Speaking Truth to Power with your host Denise Kirchoff and myself, Dr. Nakpangi Thomas, as your co-host. We have our guest Nicole Small, who is running for Detroit City Council at large, as well as Denzel McCampbell, who is running for Detroit City Clerk. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Right. I was about to say one thing, and I think all of us at this table can truly understand this. All across the country, we've seen this voter suppression. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's succeeding. For people of color, we've been here for over 400 years. We have overcome everything. Every obstacle you have put in our way, we will not go back. You can try to suppress the vote all you want, but you know what? We have learned one thing in this country, how to operate within your system of suppression, how to actually do what we need to do to get to where we need to get. So unless you totally lock us in our homes, tell us you're kicking us out of the country,
don't give them any suggestions.
we will vote.
Give them help.
We will find a way to vote. We will get other people out to vote. And then once we're done, I think the next thing to do is to vote you out. And I
really need to let people really understand the importance of voting. People really don't think it's important to vote, and your vote doesn't count. If your vote didn't count, then people wouldn't be trying to suppress your damn vote.
Right.
Get your butt to the poll.
That's what you need to realize. If it wasn't hurting them or stopping their power, they wouldn't want you to do it, because they looked around and like, oh my God, these people of color, they don't want us to rule over them. Yeah. They don't want us to take things away from them. So in order to keep it, we got to stop them from voting. But I think what they don't understand is like the mindset pushback we have that we don't even talk about. You want to talk about the hive mind of color? Let's go with that theory. Because we're all like, well, unless I have 2 broken legs and the poll is closed,
I am getting there.
I'm going to vote. If I got to stand in line for a day, I will stand in line for a day. I'll stand in line for 2 days. I stood in line for concert tickets for 3 days when I was 19. So I will stand in line to vote.
Yes.
And we've all been there. Yes. And we have raised those children who are now on the front line going, oh, no, you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's something else that we actually need to do as a family unit. Start talking about this in our households, importance of voting, educating our children from grade school. I learned about voting all the way from first grade all the way to adult.
My mom and daddy didn't miss an election, okay?
No. And I was raised by my grandparents. Exactly.
It was non-negotiable. All of this is the talk. Oh, you gonna vote.
Even in our block club meetings, we would have discussions about candidates who would come in after candidates would come in and talk to us. Guess what? We were meeting. I think we have a caller coming through.
Okay, 718. Did you have something to say?
Thank you for calling Speaking Truth to Power.
Yes.
You have a
Hello.
question or a comment. Thank you
I'm enjoying the show, and I just wanted to say this is a little off topic, but I would like the candidates to keep in mind and help push. I think it ought to be some type of qualification test for people who decide to run for office, because you have a lot of incompetent people running for office just simply because they meet the residency or the age eligibility. And you have cities like Pontiac, Highland Park, Flint, Ecorse, Taylor that suffer due to the incompetence, the intellectual dysfunction of the people who end up getting elected sometimes to high-level positions.
Right.
So I think we should set some kind of standard to actually be eligible to run for office, at least executive branch type offices. Thank you.
Thank you, caller, for that.
He trying to dismantle 90% of our local government.
Right.
Well, that's
a good
no, but that's one of
Yes.
the things. Like in Pontiac, I think it's for mayor. In Pontiac, 80% of the residents don't even know what their mayor looks like. Don't even know who it is. I'm like, wait a minute. How do you not know who your mayor is? Well, they've never been around. They've never shown up. I'm like, what? So I thought that when I read it and like in my so I was totally astonished. I'm like, well, does somebody run against them? Somebody please run against them, because when over half of your city does not know who you, well, not their mayor, not,
But that's
it was city
laziness,
council.
though.
It's like, how do you keep that job? Oh, because nobody runs against you. And for people to say, well, I've never met them, they've never come to my neighborhood, I don't know anybody's neighborhood they have been to, even their city council. I'm just thinking, that's horrible.
But there's another point that he brought up, like to have the capacity and the skill set to be able to do a job. Let's just talk about a couple of things that have transpired really quickly in Detroit. So you sold Herman Kiefer for pennies on a dollar, turned around, doubled down, and sold 300 parcels in that immediate area to the same owner who doesn't even live in this state, probably not this country. And then he wants to build trees on there. Meanwhile, the people who have been in those neighborhoods like LaSalle Garden, Virginia Park, Boston, Edison have been there and have been trying to acquire some of those lots and those homes because they've been maintaining them, and you told them no. Not a good business decision. Then you have what we call State Fairgrounds right over here.
Oh, yes.
So you sell that, and this is where we're talking about the lack of shared information, which is all intentional. Everywhere we go, don't they always say they sold it to Amazon? They didn't. They sold it to Ross Perot's company in Texas. Why did you have to go to Texas to sell some prime real estate at the corridor at 8 Mile and Woodward when people have been trying to acquire that forever, and Amazon is going to lease it? So that's the lack of opportunity. Then we have that Broadhead Armory I was telling you about, which is literally the building after the Belle Isle Bridge. The whole back end is waterfront. The whole front end is on Jefferson. It has its own parking lot. It's a huge building. Land is worth more than $6 million. Again, they sold it to the Parade Company for $300,000. The fact that you have an entire city council and that passed by a majority of council members. See, this is not good business practices. And then you turn around and tell Detroiters, I don't have money for your sidewalks in the neighborhood, or I don't have money to do this in your neighborhood, because you're giving
parks
everything
for
away.
your kids.
Now, do you all think that some of this money that is missing is in the pockets of some of these elected officials?
Not directly out of that, but what I feel that happens, let me just say this is me, is that what happens is that because you sell the land for so cheap, you're giving it away, then it comes back to you in a form of a donation to your campaign. That's what I think.
And that's key. And that's when we get to, and you know, city clerk.
That's taking money.
Yeah, the city clerk, I mean, when we look
I
at.
just didn't want people to think they were still in it at the
That's
table.
a
Right,
bribe.
like
That's pretty
but
much
you
a
know,
bribe.
but that's if you look at our campaign finance laws in the state of Michigan, it allows that to happen, right? It doesn't have the checks and balances. We also don't have timely updates on how people are being funded, right? Like we've been running for this whole time, and we just had to submit a campaign finance report.
Yesterday.
Yeah, 10 days before the election. So that leaves no time for accountability of folks to say, oh wait, this person gave to you and you just voted on their account. Like, what is that, right? Before the election. So that's something that we have to look into. We also have to think about, you know, we have this wide range of PACs that folks can put money into and run these dark campaigns that we're seeing on property, and we don't know who it is, right? We see a name on it, but we don't know. If you really pull back the curtain, you probably see the billionaires and folks in the city who want the status quo to stay. So that's also something that we have to take action on when it comes to transparency. And the other thing I want to talk about is you talked about I tell folks that my mom took me to the voting booth all the time, and my dad would come home and he would take me, so I go vote twice. With them, right? So no fraud, right?
And plus you were underage.
Exactly.
Right. So it wasn't like you were truly
but
voting.
They would
right.
say like, who should I vote for? As they get like to just quiz me on things, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. I did an educators roundtable on civic education, and they said, look, we need to have programming from K through 12,
Amen.
so that we can
Yes.
have set the foundation. And kids know who's running. You had all
They ear hustling
right.
at home.
Yeah,
Really, they are well informed.
They were informed.
Very different generation of children.
Exactly. So we should be meeting them where they are to say, okay, since you know this, let's teach you what's going on.
Exactly.
And then we will have generations and generations of informed folks to take action and be involved.
Say that. Because I remember, like you, I was raised by my grandparents. So going to the voting booth with them sitting with all these flyers
Yes.
on the table. Nope, not that one. Nope,
Yeah.
this one is not for this and this and
That's
that.
right.
No, this one,
Right,
this one.
right.
Well, this one said blah, blah, blah. This one came to the house.
Mm-hmm.
This one was at this meeting. And then my grandfather was a Chrysler employee. So he retired with 62 years of seniority there. But he would take me to union meetings. To even figure
Yes.
out how the union worked and why
Yes.
the union was important to the employees.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So these are things that have been taken out of the home that we need to bring back. So I'm saying, parents, you have a certain responsibility to educate your child on civil engagement. It starts at home. So start that process early.
And support the candidates who are there for increased education.
Yes.
Because there are folks who don't want people to know
Exactly.
what's
Thank
going
you.
on.
And
Thank
just so
you.
people know, you're watching Speaking Truth to Power. We have about 5
We're
minutes.
We're over. Thank you for watching. See us next Saturday at 10 o'clock.
on Speaking Truth to Power.